About 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day, Katie Greifeld here alongside Sally Bakewell. She's in for Romaine Bostic and here to help take us through the closing bell. It's a global simulcast. We're joined now by Massar and Tim Stenovec. And Carol,
yes.
A bit of a heavy trade that developed just in the last few hours here.
Yeah, kind of interesting. Are you being facetious?
No, not at all.
All right, well, I don't know. I mean, the S&P, I'm just going to go there. Little change. At one point, it was pretty much unchanged. But if you go inside the index, which we like to do, you actually have most names, about 331 to the downside. So there is definitely more of a risk-off trade today.
More of a risk-off trade, but oil moving ever so slightly higher. I think some folks out there surprised it's not moving higher on the day today, given the conflict in the Middle East and what many would argue escalating. WTI up above 83 a barrel. Brent close to $89 a barrel. We did see gas prices too tick up above $4 a gallon, according to AAA, Sally, earlier today.
And we also see the S&P 500 is up, helped by this bounce in chip makers after a slump last week that's likely prompted investors to be buying the dip. But Alphabet, Amazon, and Microsoft all helped prop up the index, though Apple and Tesla kept some of those gains in check.
Yeah, and of course, it does feel like we're in a little bit of wait-and-see mode. We know that we have a very heavy calendar when it comes to tech earnings this week, and not to mention a Fed meeting next week. But I'm getting ahead of myself because you take a look at where we're going to finish up on this Monday, just about 12 seconds away from those closing bells. The S&P 500 will finish about 0.2% lower. We did open in the green earlier today, but drifting lower into the close. The Nasdaq looks like it's going to close in the red as well as those official numbers settle here. And then the Dow Jones Industrial Average, if you put any stock in that, it's going to finish about 0.6% lower.
The Dow says thank you for mentioning me, Katie. All right, S&P 500, back there we go. Again, as I said earlier, most of the names in the S&P 500, Katie, lowered today. 337 to the downside, 165 gaining ground, one unchanged here.
Same story when you take a look at the sector level as measured by our friend, the circle here. Communication services did manage to finish in the green. So did information technology and energy. Those were your three lone gainers today on the sector level. 8 sectors finishing in negative territory. Your biggest loser on the day, healthcare, down by more than 1%. Followed by materials and industrials, Carol.
All right, guys, let's go to some of the individual gainers, if I may. This one, a top gainer in the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100, number 2 in the S&P, and number 1 gainer in the NASDAQ 100. We're talking about Lumentum Holdings, ticker is LITE. This one finishing the day with a gain of about 5% here. You might remember in early May, it kind of got on our radar. That's when it was announced it would be included in the NASDAQ 100. It's an optical and photonic technologies maker, so definitely an AI play. Barclays upgrading the maker of such to overweight from equal weight. Stock is up about 100% year to date, and despite that, Barclays analyst says it's still attractive following a recent pullback, making it a good buy. So they've got a price target of $1,000 on this stock, and you can see closing at about $765 and change. So that's about a 36% increase from the last price on Friday before this note came out. So some upward momentum certainly in that one. Let's go on over to Teradyne. Did see this one also being a top gainer in the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 as well, up about 3.5% at its intraday high, almost a 9% move to the upside. But again, finishing just under 4% here. UBS raising the target on the semiconductor manufacturing company to 500 from 440, maintaining a buy rating. So that means quite a bump up from where the stock is now, 333.76 a share. Stock, too, is up about 75% year to date, so it's been on a tear. And then, did anybody go to the movies this weekend?
Oh, not me. I'd like to next weekend, though.
You better do it before the baby comes.
That's true.
You should bring the baby.
Yeah.
All right.
No headphones.
All right. So there was a big movie out, as we know. We're talking about Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, and we did see movie theaters moving today, but some of it too had to do with AMC Entertainment. They came out. They reported strong adjusted EBITDA for the second quarter that beat the average analyst estimate. So this stock was up 26% year to date, but we did see some peers like Cinemark also higher, up about 5%. So I think it was probably more on the earnings. IMAX, which I know you guys are going to be talking to the CEO.
Just a few minutes.
Rich Gelfond, a little bit later on. That stock had a tougher time today. So I'm curious to see what he has to say though, about people going.
Thanks for the promo. I like this.
You're very well. You know, we're just one big family.
That's so true.
I don't know. I didn't see
You
the
don't know if
Odyssey.
we're one big family?
I know
No,
we're not one big
Tim's on the
family.
fence.
I did not see the Odyssey, but I know how it ends. So
No spoilers.
yeah, I will not give anything away. But the stories, let's just say the story's been around for quite some time. Let's start with some media stocks. Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount Skydance both fell today. This after a federal judge temporarily paused Paramount Skydance's takeover of Warner Brothers Discovery, saying it likely violates antitrust law. Warner Brothers Discovery fell by 3.8%. Paramount Skydance fell by a little over 2%. The judge did order that the companies hold off on consummating the deal for 14 days, scheduled an August 3rd hearing on whether to extend the hold for longer. Just a reminder that California and 11 other states sued to block the merger. They alleged that it would harm competition for film and cable TV distribution. All right, so Paramount Skydance and Warner Brothers Discovery lower. Warner closing at its lowest level going back to December 4th. Let's go to another media stock. This one, Netflix. Shares of Netflix fell today, down by about 2%. This was actually before all the Warner Brothers Discovery, Paramount Skydance stuff crossed. Analysts cutting their price targets for Netflix since the company reported earnings. That was last Thursday. Shares of Netflix are down by about 50% from those June highs of 2025. Since the latest report last week, 27 analysts cut price targets by an average of 19%. We recall Friday, shares fell by 7%. That was after the company forecast a second consecutive quarter of slowing sales growth that contributed to investor anxiety about the future of Netflix. And finally, Sweetgreen. SG is the ticker. Shares of Sweetgreen today fell by more than 6%. They were down as much as 9% earlier in the session, Katie. The slide saw the stock down last Monday through Thursday, 15%. It was a concern over the outbreak of that diarrhea-causing parasite linked to fresh produce. The concern that analysts have would that consumers would avoid the salad chain. Sweetgreen shares fell 26% in that 4-day period because I included Friday in there. Then they rose on Friday 14% because of where it was linked, and now there are questions about what it's linked to.
Right.
So who knows? An analyst over at Citi says that concerns that Sweetgreen will face incremental sourcing and prep costs, and consumers will avoid produce-heavy food during this current outbreak. Once again, Sweetgreen shares down by about 6%.
Yeah, you also saw Chipotle shares down again today. And even if it's not linked to some of the specific lettuce at some of these chains, as Tim was saying, just sort of the guilty by association, I think, is sending shares lower. Let's talk about the bond market, though, because there's no diarrhea-causing parasites there. Just a sell-off, a run-of-the-mill sell-off across the curve here. We know that oil prices were higher on the day. That led to yields being boosted across the curve by about 3 to 4 basis points here. The 10-year Treasury yield trading just below 460, Carol.
All right, so who watched the World Cup final?
So
Show hands, everybody.
Well,
come on.
I was driving, but so I
did
didn't.
You listen?
Yeah, I listened to the whole thing, and
Wow,
my
old
son
school.
watched it, the whole thing on my phone in the back. See, I don't know what kind of dad that makes me.
No, good dad.
In the back, and I would have
He
to have him
wasn't driving the
explain.
car, so it's fine that he was using the phone.
Yeah.
Well, there's an estimate out there by NDTV and saying that the FIFA World Cup may have cost the U.S. economy $11.7 billion in terms of lost productivity. Globally, the tournament may have led to a loss of $17 billion in productivity.
Well, think about it. Think about it globally. I mean, 1.7 billion people around the world tuned in. And here in the U.S., Sally, it was nice because we finally get to host it and have it on our time zone. But you had people all over the world staying up in the middle of the night to watch this thing on a Sunday or getting up really early Monday morning. They're not going to be so productive at work after that.
You know what I was thinking? We have the UK is out of the World Cup, but we have a new Prime Minister in. I did not watch the final, but I did see the England-France game. And while that was just for third place, it was a phenomenal game with a lot of discussion around the time that if only England had brought that sort of pace and spirit to the Argentina game, they might have done a little bit better, but it shows the difference pressure can make, which also feels a bit like a financial market analogy there somewhere.
There you go, yeah. And there were a lot of goals scored in that third place game. I know nothing about soccer, but I know that
was
the score was
not.
higher than usual.
No, in the third place game there were goals.
Yeah, in the third place game.
Yeah, the Saturday
the third
game.
place
yeah.
game.
Yeah, 6-4 was the final
That's so
score.
many.
Yesterday's went really slow.
Yeah, well, I was also driving, so I missed it.
All right. Okay. Well, that's
And
a
it was
wrap.
in New Jersey, where
I know.
both of you
I skirted
reside.
by it pretty much.
Yeah.
I went to the Home Depot in Jersey City, Carol. I didn't see you there.
Oh man, I almost did
I think
go.
we have to
That
go.
would have been so funny. All right, next
Next
time,
time.
just call
Oh.
me, Katie. Call me. I'll
There
meet
you
you.
go.
I'll meet you in plants.
I'll just start
up
shouting.
on the roof. Okay, deal.